This is simply a letter that arrived at my house from Greece, containing a stamp that I purchased on eBay. Uh, so I find these Greek stamps very appealing. So that's Socrates on the left there, and this is a picture of the island of Castellorizo, which all worldwide collectors will recognize. There's a listing in the Scott catalog for stamps used in that island under several different occupations. Once again, we have this code here, a holographic um, code, somewhat like a QR code, rather attractive looking island there, Castellorizo. It's an island off the coast of Turkey in the Dodecanese group, which I'll be getting to at some point in my series of presentations about the postal history of Greece. It's actually a group of 14 islands, which centuries ago got the name of the 12 islands. Dodeca is 12 in Greek. The item that came in this letter is this eBay letter. Here's the item, a Greek stamp, the so-called campaign issue canceled in Korytsa, which is a town now in Albania, but was the place where a lot of Greeks lived, and it's very near the border. It's just like over the border from Greece, and it was part of the independent country of Epirus briefly in 1914, and then was occupied by Greeks both in World War I and World War II. So there are lots of postmarks, Korytsa postmarks on Greek stamps, as well as on Albanian stamps and Epirus stamps. And that's the subject of this little presentation. It's only about a half dozen stamps, but each of them from a different political administration during this very turbulent period. So this is Greece N153. It's interesting. My Greek specialized catalog lists these stamps as part of the regular issues of Greece, not as occupation stamps or anything, but just right in with the other stamps issued, starting in 1861. And the reason for that, I believe, is that these were produced for the new territories acquired by Greece after the Balkan War, but they were issued by the Greek post office. They are not local issues. There were many local issues. There were provisional issues created for temporary use before any stamps arrived from the Greek post office. The back of the book issues in Greece are very extensive and complicated. And those are the N numbers, and these are listed among them. But as I say, these were actually issued by the Greek post office for use in the new territories, but they were also valid throughout Greece. So that's another reason for including them with the regular Greek issues instead of the back of the book items.
The Scott catalog calls these things New Greece.
Right. The date, February, you can just barely make out the date on this. I'm not so sure about the number. It looks like it's probably 12, but it's definitely February. The only month that would have this E epsilon beta would be February and 1914. And this would be during the first Greek occupation of North Epirus at the end of the Balkan War, which started in October of 1912. The Greeks were in possession of this territory. Epirus was taken over by Greece in Greek forces in December of 1912. Here's a map of Albania, and Korytsa, called Korytsa in Albanian, is right down here in the southeastern corner. You've got Greece down here, the Republic of what is now Republic of North Macedonia. Kosovo is up here, and Montenegro. The next kind of stamp used in Korytsa after the Greeks departed, Greek forces departed on March 3rd, 1914, The control of the town was taken over by the International Control Commission, which had been designated by the Ambassadors' Conference in London to engineer a transition to independence for the new country of Albania. And for a month or so, they lacked any stamps. Albanian stamps had not yet arrived. There were stamps that had been printed for use in Albania, but they needed to get from the seacoast, from the town of Valona, where the headquarters of the new government were, to Korytsa, and that was quite a trek over the mountains. There was no quick way to get anything from the seacoast to the inland areas. So this temporary hand stamp device was made and stamped right onto the cover. This is the back of a cover here. Interestingly, mailed on March 30th, 1914, and with the arrival in Thessalonica on 21 March, an earlier date because they were using the old calendar, the old style dating Julian calendar. Well, the Albanians, under the supervision of the International Control Commission, were only in control of Korytsa for a brief period before they were overrun by forces of Epirus. The Epirot army occupied Korytsa, took it over in July of 1914. They had already been issuing stamps, but they made this one overprinted Korytsa to commemorate their acquisition of that town and the addition of it to the territory of autonomous Epirus. 15 September 1914, that would be right at the very end of the existence of autonomous Epirus, before the town was again occupied by Greek forces. What happened to the country, shall we say, of independent or autonomous Epirus is a little unclear. The history of the town doesn't have any evidence of an actual closing date for that government. But the whole purpose of the autonomous Epirus was to keep that territory under Greek control. And when forces from Greece itself took over, the leaders of autonomous Epirus were perfectly happy with it. They didn't need to continue to try to set up an independent country if it was controlled by Greece anyway. That was their purpose. So here's a stamp issued during the second Greek occupation of North Epirus, overprinted beta, which first letter of Boreas, or North, Epirus. The Greek government at the time was neutral in the war. The king of Greece was married to the sister of the Kaiser, and his administration was extremely unwilling, reluctant to get involved in the war because of that. The Entente powers, Great Britain, France, and at that time, Italy, agreed to let Greek forces control this territory in order to keep the Central powers, Austrians and the Bulgarians, out. It was helpful to the Entente powers to have the Greeks in control of North Epirus, even though they were not technically involved in the war. And this date, 13, looks like April 1915, is during the almost 2-year period when the Greeks controlled North Epirus. Here's another cover from the same period. This is right toward the, not too close to the end, July 1916. The campaign stamps were overprinted with North Epirus, and also these regular issues. You see the vertical overprint here, North Epirus, on all of them. I thought it was interesting that this cover on the back is imprinted Korytsa, Greece, a rather hopeful expression of confidence that it would end up Greek. But as history turned out, it did not. It's now part of Albania. The basic stamp here is one of the regular issues, overprinted North Epirus, but it has this weird little spidery looking double eagle. This was issued under French occupation. French forces moved up from Salonika in what's known as the Southern Front in World War I. They were moving up in support of Serbia against the Austrians and the Bulgarians. And when they got to Korytsa, they ejected the Greek forces that had been controlling the town. Those were the royalist forces that were technically neutral in the war. And the French forces took over. And they collaborated with local Albanians. They arranged for the Albanians in the area to cooperate with them in order to keep them from joining forces with the other side. The Albanians agreed to work with the French and the other Entente forces in exchange for being recognized as, for Korytsa being recognized as an Albanian town. They set up something called the Republic of Korytsa, and this was the first their first effort at producing a postage stamp. Now, this isn't listed in Scott. It's something these were only very briefly used before they produced somewhat better stamps. And there are a lot of forgeries of these things. So they're listed in the Greek catalog that I have, not because this really is part of Greece, but just because it's on a Greek stamp. You notice that the cancellation says Korytsa, which is the Greek word, the Greek name for the town, but the lettering is now Latin. It's not the Greek anymore, Korytsa.
It's canceled in French.
Yes, you could say that. The word Albania there that's the French version of the name. That's right. The next stamp is going to show the Korytsa. The inscription here means independent Albania. It was known as the Republic of Korytsa, although the stamps don't say that. Some of the later stamps actually do say Republic of Albania. But the name of the town here is represented in the Albanian way, Korça, but the cancellation is still Korytsa, spelled with Latin letters.
And yet another currency. We've had Pyrrhus, we've had Lepta, now we have Sant.
Right. Well, the Republic of Korytsa was under French military supervision, and I don't know to what extent they actually made use of French currency, but the stamps were printed in franc and centime. That is the end of this brief tour of stamps canceled in Korytsa.